we're back in our old habit of taking one passage from the Odyssey and then realizing, ooh, this makes a previous passage we read all the more interesting. And those are the premiums of close reading and being able to take the opportunity to read slowly. So here we have instructions from Circe, or khre, to Odysseus about what it'll be like to go to Hades and visit Teiresias and find out about all sorts of things that Odysseus doesn't yet know. And I like the way the words of Circe highlight telein, bring to fulfillment, that there'll be another journey. The key will be to enter this transitional zone that's called here the Palace of Hades, and how there'll be a consultation. And I'm emphasizing the word khre because when we look at some prose sources about what it's like to consult oracles or what it's like to consult the spirits of dead heroes in the context of their hero cults, this word will be very important. So this isn't just a random interview in a Never Never land called Hades. It has great significance for people who actually practice hero cult and who are used to making contact notionally with the spirits of the dead.
So Greg, you are speaking now about spirits of the dead, but it seems that the Odyssey implies that only Teiresias out of all dead has this kind of conscience, but is it so?
I admit that that's what the Odyssey says, but I wager that in other scenes it's some other character who is privileged. It's more a matter of highlighting what can be seen in a special way, even in Hades. And the exceptionalism of Teiresias, I think, can be compared with other tales of exceptionalism involving other characters. The point is that you don't expect just any dead person to be able to communicate with you in a privileged kind of way. And certainly that's what Teiresias does. So if you're trying to consult your great-great-great-grandfather in ancestor worship, it's not as likely that you'll get this much mantic information and wisdom. Mm-hmm. So that's the way I try to explain to myself the exceptional way Teiresias responds. It's still, however, fairly typical of the way any cult hero would respond to anybody who consults them, not in Hades, but in our world. Mm-hmm. If we can imagine what our world is in 5th century Greece, or 5th century Greek-speaking places.
I see. So two things that come to my mind is Achilles' amazement when Patroklos is giving him instructions and
yes.
speaking to him.
Yes.
So there is a similar sense of great specialness and
yes.
exceptionality
yes.
of
yes.
the moment.
I think Homeric poetry in general tries to take conventional situations and then enhance them some more, and enhance them even more. And by the time you get to the Homeric experience, it is like other experiences, but it's just much more special.
Mm-hmm. I see.
I think that would be a way to think about it. And you notice that he does have consciousness, nous, even in this other realm. And he's the only one, as you pointed out a few moments ago, who has the power to think, to be conscious. And again, I would say it's not quite the case, because every time people worship heroes, there is that kind of experience. I think what makes this particular moment also very special is that it happens in Hades, which is a transitional point. Odysseus himself is not in a normal hero-worshipping situation, and how could he? He's in the heroic age, and sure, sometimes heroes can show how it's done in later ages, but it's still a messy situation to have all of these pointers towards hero cult happening in Hades. So maybe that's the way to grapple with the complications here. Anything else about this? Well, maybe one thing while we're still just thinking about this. Here you have the word noos, and in passage J, which we saw a minute ago, you have nostos. So there we know that the first word that Teiresias utters when he starts speaking to Odysseus is nostos. And now we know from this preview here in text K, where Circe is previewing what will happen in Hades, that Teiresias is exceptionally endowed with noos, even in Hades. Maybe I'd like to say one more thing about the exceptionalism of Teiresias. I think if you imagine Teiresias sort of where he is eschatologically placed. By eschatologically, I mean where you expect the spirits of heroes who are worshipped to find their dwelling. That wouldn't really be Hades. That would be somewhere beyond a paradise-like situation. A garden setting is another way to put it. And when you're actually worshiping a hero, you're not worshiping the hero as you imagine him in this transitional Hades. You're worshiping a hero as you imagine him eschatologically, where he or she winds up, where he's already, or she is already on a white island, or Elysium, or all these other mythologized places of afterlife. This is in progress. It's not final.
I see. This brings my mind to Patroklos again, because Patroklos is also still, hanging around the gates
He's
of
very
Hades.
transitional. It's as if he hasn't even entered the gates. Maybe that's why he's still life-size. That really bothers me, and bothered Achilles too. He says, wow, you're dead, but your psyche is life-size. You're supposed to be a miniaturized version of yourself by now. If you're passing through Hades, you're just a picture. So how come you're so real life?